Hey, good afternoon. How's the day treating you so far? Oh, that doesn't sound very warm. A little warmer, please? Thank you.
Where is everybody?
Oh, much better. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So welcome to a Revelation or Revolution. We're going to be talking about higher ed today for 38 minutes and 53 seconds and counting. I'm sure that's enough time to solve all the problems of higher education. By means of table setting, I wanted to start with something I read last week from a longtime professor at Ohio State. Anybody from Ohio here? No? Okay, good. That makes me feel better. So this is what the faculty member wrote. This has been the hardest semester in my 31 years working in higher education. Our university leaders are sending out messages that our work continues unimpeded into the future. I am grateful that they can say it because I can't. We're going to lose a lot of brilliant future researchers, cherished colleagues, invaluable institutions, our sense of safety to do the work we were summoned to our campuses to perform. And yet, higher education will get through it because we have to. And in the end, we will prove our campus leaders were right after all. Our work will continue into the future. Okay, so there's a suffering faculty member, and he's talking about the messages that campus leaders are sending out into the world, and you are all extraordinary and experienced campus leaders. So let me start first by talking about this moment in higher ed. Call it pivotal, call it unprecedented, call it unpredictable. It's certainly a moment when crisis management is the new normal. So how do you balance long-term strategy with the constant incoming that's the daily firefighting? And what's something in your background that helps you to maintain that balance? And John, let's start with you.
Sure. It helps to have been a middle school principal because one of the things that you learn as a middle school principal is adolescents go up and down, and the thing that it's a roller coaster. And part of what you need to do as a middle school educator is stay even and clear. And so I think in this moment, it's important for higher ed institutions to stay even, to be clear on what our mission is, what our values are. For us at SUNY, that means student success, research and scholarship, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I said it, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Oh, he said it.
Look at you.
and economic development and upward mobility. And those are our values, and so we organize our work around those values, and the work continues. And then we have to have a clear strategy for how to respond to some of the threats, and they are significant to our institutions. And we have a very clear strategy. We are litigating a lot. Our Attorney General, Tish James in New York, I think has filed dozens of suits already in this last couple of months. We will file more, but we're going to protect our values. We have to be clear with legislators. Thank you. We have to be clear with legislators about what we deliver for their constituents and be aggressive in saying we need a bipartisan consensus that higher education is foundational to the future of the country. And then we have to educate folks on what we actually do, the return on investment, the value proposition. And if we're able to do those things, we can maintain the clarity and vigilance about what we exist to do.
Melva, I'm going to pass to you.
Yeah, I think what prepares me is that I was the youngest child, which means as a young child, if you're the youngest, that means you get beat up a lot. Your parents don't really watch you as much, so you kind of get to just get beat up and bumped along the way. But yet you turn 40 and you survive it all, right? So I think that is what prepares me the most. It also doesn't hurt that I started my career as a director of human resources in corporate America. So managing people also helps. But the advice that I would give and what I would share about insight, I'm at Huston-Tillotson University. We're in Austin, Texas. And go Austin. Go Rams. That's right. And, the stats help. And so our institution has been named the #1 HBCU in the country that puts students in the highest wage jobs immediately upon graduation. So to your point, when we're talking to legislators, people like Ted Cruz and Senator Cornyn, when I'm in their offices in DC, I'm communicating how we prepare students for the workforce. And I think that is helpful. I'm also at an HBCU, and that is a historically black college and university. There are approximately 100, shouts out to the HBCUs. There are approximately 101 or so HBCUs in the country. Our value proposition is one that we continue to punch above our weight because the students that come to our institutions are oftentimes underestimated. And we continue to ensure that, that the America that we know is strong because we continue to put black and brown people into the workforce. So with that in mind, we continue to share that message out and continue to speak the good news of what we do, but stay the course. Stay the course.
Stay the course. Good advice. With everything that's going on, however, is it a moment for boldness, or is it a moment for protective crouch or going into fetal position? And let's do boldness first. I mean, what does boldness in this moment even look like? And Dan, I'm going to pass that to you.
So, for me, boldness is about recognizing that somehow along the way we've lost the trust of the American public. And we've known this for a while, right? The Gallup polling since about 2012 has shown a continuous slide in trust in higher education. And it's become bipartisan, and I think it had become bipartisan by about 2017, 2018. And the numbers are poor, and we've known about that. And there's a reason for that. And at some point along the way, I think boldly, we're going to have to bring our intellectual curiosity to bear on the simple question of what the heck happened. And we're going to have to ask ourselves about how an organization of people who value inclusiveness have lost more than half our country. That's not inclusive. We have to ask ourselves, how can organizations which are here to lift up people and provide opportunities for all are imposing debt and seeing stop-out rates at 40+%. There's reasons that people are, we say there are 40 million people who have some college and no degree. It's an opportunity for adult, what's it called, degree completion. It's a tragedy because most of them have debt, and I bet some of them are angry. So, I think the boldness comes in fighting for our values vigorously, and John, you've done a tremendous job on media over the last several weeks, thank God. But at the same time, I think we have to own our responsibility for tackling those problems in a meaningful way. Now is the time to use this crisis, because it is a crisis. It is an existential threat to our ability to continue to furnish a democracy, right? We have to use this as an opportunity to address the structural and performance challenges that we know we have. That it requires boldness and a tinge of humility. And I think it'll also help us begin to curry back the trust of the public, which is sacred to our operation.
Marjorie, what do you think? Boldness or keep your head down?
Well, I've never been a keep my head down kind of person, so I'm going to say boldness. And maybe I'll start by tying it to that first question, because my background, I'm a Jewish woman, and I am very blessed to have had a very strong Torah education as I grew up. And if there's one thing that teaches you, is to take the long view. The story is never completely written. But it also teaches you that you have to pay very close attention to the work that you are called to do in this moment as well. And I do think that's lessons we all can use now. And it helps us, I think about the way we need to be bold. I have been doing some thinking and writing and speaking about the temptation to, as Dan warned us of, just step back into that defensive crouch. We should not be forced into a position of defending programs, policies, initiatives that were sort of second-rate or also-rans anyway. One of the reasons, for example, that DEI is such an open target is because we have continued to treat it like a peripheral side issue on many campuses. We have not, in fact, truly made the core of the institution inclusive. We have not truly, right, there's gonna be a lot of opportunities to clap because we're gonna say really good things. So we love that, but don't feel you have to. But, we have
Don't
not
listen
truly
to her.
done that.
You can clap.
Right? If you still have an American history course and an African American history course, you're vulnerable. Why is your American history course not also teaching the history of all of the people, particularly the important history of African Americans? So we should not be defending things that were stopgap or second-rate solutions, and that is one example. Again, not true on every campus, but true on many of them. We have to do the real work. And finally, I'll say, again, from my own learning as a child and from what I see today, there has never been a better moment to imagine a truly inclusive, truly just form of higher education in America than there is right now. The best writing on human freedom has been written by people in prisons. The best writing on democracy has been written by people who are not living in a full democracy. The best writing about what higher education can be and should be will be written now when it is under such attack. We have that responsibility to be bold and forward-looking and very creative.
I want to add to that too, because here's what I know to be true. When I'm meeting with CEOs of companies, and I'm meeting with HR directors, and I'm meeting with all of these, especially in Austin, where it is just booming with jobs. I've never met anybody or a parent, when I go to recruitment events, I've never met a parent that is, when their kid decides not to go to college, that they're doing the Tootsie Roll. Like, they're like, yes, you're not going. So it is, when people say, oh, we've lost the trust, we still want our kid to go.
Yes.
We believe that, college isn't for everybody, but we want our kid to go.
Amen.
So let's just call a thing a thing. And you can clap for that over there. Because what we know, we say those things, but yet we want our family members, our niece, our nephew to go and get a college education, because we honestly really do know that you're better off with especially if you look like me. You're better off with a college degree, a master's degree, a whatever else you can get out in these streets. Yeah. Because if you're out left unequipped, you will not be as successful. Now that is data and that is #facts. That you will not be as equipped and prepared to take these jobs if you do not have the requisite paper that says that you can. So it is difficult to see the data, but it's also my reality in knowing that workforce and CEOs is saying, please help.
Can I add
So,
to that? Because, yes, and the dirty secret, and we know it, is that in many institutions, the master's degree is a cash cow.
Absolutely.
And the dirty little secret, and many of us know it, is that a good chunk of our students who are graduating from our colleges and universities aren't actually earning that college wage premium, right? And it is obviously disproportionately concentrated in black and brown graduates. So those are the kind of challenges that we need to address. And now is an opportunity to say, yep, we're on it, and we're going to get to it, because our students, and frankly our faculty and staff, I think they deserve better, and now is no time like the present.
So true.
And that's the boldness that I would say we need, is to do the things to address those critiques. So I'll give you 3 quick examples. As Dan points out, if you leave college with some credits and no degree, that is not a good outcome. And so we need to get better at completion. So at SUNY, we are scaling the ASAP and ACE programs, both of which have been demonstrated in randomized controlled trials to have a positive impact on retention, persistence, and completion. In fact, the ASAP program, which is the community college version, has been shown in RCTs in multiple states to nearly double completion rates for low-income students. So we're scaling those programs to 25 of our campuses because we're going to get better at completion. We're about the national average, but I want us to be the best at completion. A second example on the value proposition, I think you're totally right. Everybody wants their kid to have a job at the end, right? And across lines of race and class, that's what people expect. One of the challenges is internships, and one of the most important things that we can help students do while in college to put them on that path to post-college career success. And yet, it's affluent students who are doing the unpaid internships. It's a relatively small percentage of students. It's the engineering student, but not the sociology student. So we've set out a goal of internships for all SUNY undergraduates. We have a long way to go, but we want every undergraduate at our 2-year and 4-year institutions to have an internship experience. We are putting resources into that. We are launching initiatives in partnership with state agencies, industry, as well as nonprofits to get more students into meaningful paid internship experiences.
You know, part of this, I think, is also that because we have increasingly in this country come to treat education as though it's a private good, that it is all about you and your personal success, it's your investment and your return on that investment, very crassly in terms of dollars, et cetera. We have lost the notion that education is a collective good. And so why do institutions need cash cows? They need cash cows because the states have pulled back from funding them, federal government has pulled back from funding education, and industry has pulled back from funding education. When I came out of college, if you were going to go into banking, the bank had a year-long internship program, essentially. They paid you, you moved from department to department, you learned. That was true in fashion, merchandising. It was true if you joined a large corporation. They provided that internship year at a paid salary. They have all pulled back on those programs. They do not do that anymore. So we have had to actually do more with less. And we're continually asked to do more with less to make up the societal value gap. There's what the student can afford to pay, and there's what the society needs. And colleges are having to fill that gap, and the gap is getting wider and wider. And at some point, it is just too big for us to fill alone.
Which means that setting priorities is going to be more and more important, and figuring out exactly what we need to do for our students. So let's talk a little bit about the conditions for change and the obstacles to change. One of the things that really struck me last year when I was president of Hunter College, anybody from New York in the room? Oh, okay. It was a cheap shot, I know, but you know, it made me feel good. Anyway, students, faculty, donors, alumni, elected officials, people who write for the newspapers. I mean, the number of stakeholders that you have to navigate as a college administrator is absolutely incredible. But then there's also trustees, and I'm going to guess that in this room of august people, there's probably 1 or 2 college trustees, maybe? Okay, well, there's one here on the panel. So, you know, are trustees helping their institutions evolve? What's the best role going forward for trustees?
I can speak to that for sure. I am a trustee of a university, Centenary College of Louisiana, which is very unique. I'm on the board there. I'm a philanthropist. I give a lot, so that's the only reason I'm on the board, just to be realistic. But any board, as you know, it's give, get, or get off. And I would say that at Huston-Tillotson University, look us up, htu.edu. Follow us on social media, on Instagram, Huston-Tillotson University. We have the best board assembled on the planet. And I will say this on CNN with Anderson Cooper and Don Lemon. Like, I'm not just saying that because, you know, whatever, but they really are amazing. And so we are very intentional about, you know, who is on our board and why they're on the board. And they have been incredible in supporting, you know, giving, connecting us with their networks, and of course, working on certain tasks that we ensure that we're trying to lift up. The CEO of Indeed.com is on our board, a dear friend of mine, Chris Himes. We have the chief of people and the chief of talent for Handshake, Valerie Capers-Workman. She's on our board. The First Lady of Texas is on our board.
Why isn't
Thank you so much. And,
about?
and others. And others.
Yes.
So we're excited because our goal is to find trustees who are very interested in Huston-Tillotson University. And so what we see with our trustees is that they are excited about where we are, excited about our positioning, and excited that we are really moving the needle in workforce, putting students in high-wage, high-demand jobs, getting them internships, and the like. So as a board member, as a president, as a philanthropist, that's what I see the role of, and to protect the institution and our credibility.
But I think, there's such a big I would say what you said is true in the sector that I have built my career in, which includes your institutions, both Centenary and the one you're currently president at, which is small to medium-sized independent private colleges, right? Our boards are self-perpetuating. We choose who they are, we train them, and there's no incentive other than love for the mission. You don't join a board like that because it looks fancy on your resume, or you're going to meet the other fancy, board members that you might at a elite private institution, at an Ivy League institution. You join the board because of love, and you're there to give. And they do it beautifully and well. I'm really interested to hear from our colleagues at public universities.
It's a little different.
About what that looks like.
Yes. So you guys have been the trenches,
So
Yeah.
Dan can be bold,
the
right?
rough side of the mountain.
I'm no longer enrolled, John, so I'll try to think.
Now, I had a state-appointed board. I wasn't always in the land of milk and honey, so let me just say, I had a state-appointed board that was appointed by the governor, so I don't know.
So it's a politically appointed board. Pennsylvania is a divided state. When I got there, it was a Democratic governor, and the Republicans held both chambers, and it was that was reflected in the board. But just a little context: the school that I arrived as chancellor was 14 universities. 5 or 6 of which were in or heading rapidly towards insolvency, meaning they'd exhausted their bank accounts. They were operating with a negative annual operating margin. So the board, by statute, because it had to, was taking money from those who had it and giving it to those who don't. And it's basically a train falling backwards over a cliff. Everybody's being pulled down. So the board, before I arrived, took the decision that the system needed to redesign itself in order to achieve 2 objectives: stabilize itself financially and then grow, because austerity is not either aligned with our mission or a strategy. And so in the course of the next 6 years, froze tuition for 7 years, stopped they had lost 35 by the time I left, 30% in enrollment, stopped the enrollment slide, took $350 million in operating out of our annual expenditure, reduced our head count by 16%, and I'm proud to say we did not lay off terminate a single member of faculty. No one said thank you, funnily enough. And we began to see improvement in our student outcomes. And we increased our state investment by 35% and then got a $400 million one-time funding to invest in the system. So all of that, and, we integrated 6 universities and turned them into 2, which in university land would be like asking my grandmother to eat pork. So sorry about the reference. And my board made every single one of those decisions, drifted up to the board in some way, shape, or form. They're super hard. Some of them were in receipt of a protest from all of organized labor in Pennsylvania, or the House Democratic Caucus, or whatever. So serious opposition. Every single decision was unanimous, because the board understood that Pennsylvania, without public universities, could not furnish the roles that Marjorie and all of us have been talking about, that you can't imagine and don't want to live in a state which doesn't provide all of its people with an opportunity to cross that bridge into opportunity. And that was their North Star. And the politics were there, but God bless my board chair, Cindy Shapiro, shout out to her, managed that board elegantly well to that consensus. It was mission-driven.
That's a great story, Dan, and I think I too am very fortunate to have a board largely appointed by the governor. We have one person who represents the faculty senate of our four-year institutions, one person who represents the faculty councils of our community colleges, and one student member who represents our student assembly. Everyone else is appointed by the governor, and we are all 100% united around our values. But to answer your core question, are boards a force for good or not? We're going to learn a lot over the next few months.
Yeah.
Let me be clear, and I want to be a little provocative. If a board is willing to agree to stop teaching the truth about our history, if they are willing to agree that we're going to paper over the fact that we had slavery in this country, they're a bad board.
Yes, amen.
Right on.
Blue state, red state, doesn't matter. If they're willing to walk away from the fundamental principles of teaching the truth about our history, they're a bad board. If a board is willing to sacrifice academic freedom at the altar of financial convenience, they are a bad board, right? And so that's the moment we're in. This is the time of choosing.
Yeah.
So we will know a lot in the coming months if we see folks courageously saying, as institutions, we are 100% committed to our responsibility, not only to prepare the workforce, but to prepare our future citizens. We're 100% committed to the health of our democracy. We are going to reject and root out anti-Semitism. We're going to reject and root out discrimination. And we are going to preserve the First Amendment and the right of students to express views about policies, whether we find those views distasteful or not. Right? That's the choice that's in front of board members. And honestly, I have seen a lot of lack of courage, private sector and public sector, in recent months, but I'm hoping, so I'm optimistic, I am hoping that we will see people step up and meet the moment.
That's so beautifully
We promised
said.
you
And
candor and catharsis for this session, so we're getting to it. Thank you, John.
If I can add one quick thing to that, because that was so beautifully said, and I agree with you 100%. We've seen real lack of courage. And we're seeing lack of courage now. We have students at all of our institutions losing their visas now without any due process, without any process, for reasons that the stated reasons don't make sense and the unstated reasons don't make sense. We have to stand up against that, and boards have to as well. The only thing I would add as well to you is a board that lets its president fight these battles alone while it huddles in a defensive posture is a bad board as well. And too many presidents, particularly women presidents, particularly presidents of color, have been left out there alone, and when there's pushback, the board abandons ship. And we cannot have that.
Can I just take up the point? It's a touchy subject, and I'll screw it up, so I'm going to apologize in advance. And it is on academic freedom and freedom of speech. And, of course, you want to die on the altar of academic freedom and freedom of speech. It's a fight worth fighting for, it's a hill worth climbing, and it's an arrow worth taking. At the same time, the kinds of uses of academic freedom, right, have evolved well beyond those envisaged by the AAUP back in the 2010s, 2020, whenever it was. The kind of protests that we're seeing is very different than the protests that we've seen in previous generations, 60s, 70s. It's not good, bad, just very different because they pit student against student. There's some opportunity to think again about another one of our educational roles, which is to foster vigorous debate and discourse in a collegial and civil manner. And, it goes back to the thing, I haven't written anything about this because it's a little touchy, but it goes back to the thing that I was talking about earlier. There is an opportunity to say, in this arena too, we have some work to do in terms of establishing community norms and enforcing them not necessarily with the criminal justice system, but within our community. I think we have conversations that we need to have with our faculty about what is, it's not the Constitution protects you from to be a jerk, right? But that doesn't mean you should be a jerk, right? So good. That's where the constitutional limitations are, really begin to blend into what is the kind of community that we as leaders and our boards. But I think, frankly, and I agree with everything that's been said, these are hills we need to die on if we're going to die. but I don't think it's going to be as effective unless we are able to say, yep, and we've got some work to do, and we're on it, and here are the steps that we're going to take.
Do you see evidence of that happening, Dan?
He said no. Next question.
I,
Took the long.
I mean, just because
Looking for the evidence.
we all want that to happen, are we seeing evidence of that, or is society so polarized that we just are not capable of having those
and just to
difficult discussions?
and remember, one of our jobs is to sort of foster and strengthen a civil society.
We
Yeah, go
just,
ahead.
our board just adopted civic discourse as part of our general education requirements across the board, across all disciplines, starting for the freshmen of the class of 26. So we're working with faculty to talk about how do you construct in the classroom opportunities for rigorous disagreement that is still respectful. How do you help folks to learn to listen to their classmate, not just to prepare what their counter-argument that they're about to deliver, but actually to hear the values and principles and ideas of their classmate. I will say one thing that I think the ed tech community could help with is that social media and many of the tech tools that emphasize going deeper and deeper into a world of one undermine our ability to do this work. And so thinking about how do we create tools that foster meaningful, constructive discourse, how do we create classroom experiences where students are working together, potentially across lines of difference, to solve problems, that would be very helpful. And also, how do we better monitor some of those other tools that actually, I think, unfortunately, seed and exacerbate disagreement and ugliness and polarization.
That's an outstanding point. And, again, I think we could learn a lot of lessons if we take our eyes off the 5 universities that the New York Times believes exists and actually looked at the whole sector of higher education, the more than 4,000 universities. I think all of us up here, and certainly, looking not only at the institutions I was president of, but at the ones whose presidents I now work with through CIC, I can come up with hundreds of wonderful stories, beautiful stories about working across differences. Campuses where the Hillel students and the Muslim Student Association held vigils together, held dialogue, conversations together. Really beautiful, amazing stories. And reporters do not cover those. The algorithms don't lift those stories up when they are reported. We have allowed a very few loud voices to stand in for all of higher education. And we've allowed that. We've allowed ourselves to be judged by our absolute worst day rather than all the rest of the days. But there also has been a concerted effort by many interested parties to undermine higher education by giving voice and more attention to the worst of us and not to the best. So if you want to hear beautiful stories like that, go down to your local college. Not the one with the fancy brand name, but the small Catholic college nearby, the HBCU, the state branch campus, and you will see story after story after story that will give you a lot of hope.
So we're going to be out of time pretty soon, and I wanted to give you all a chance to pick up a magic wand and to change one structural thing about higher education that you could do without a committee and without a vote, and you could just make this thing happen. What would it be?
I'll let you guys start. I've always been starting.
All right, we'll go
my
around.
magic
Dan, you
wand-
want me to start? All right. Merit aid. I would get rid of merit aid. All financial aid should be need-based aid. No institution except very, very prestigious ones could do that alone, but we could collectively change that climate. So I would get rid of merit aid. It just becomes an arms race. It is a way of allowing the wealthiest families to get their education subsidized. Aid should be need-based.
Okay.
I didn't hear rousing applaud for that. You know why? Because you all got merit aid scholarships. I know that. I know you absolutely did.
There you go.
And you want them for your children.
But you didn't say take it back. I didn't
Yeah, no,
say
we're
take
not
it back.
going to, well, you could pay it forward by donating to your alma mater.
Okay, you've used your magic wand. Dan, over to you.
It's a weird one, but I would push. I would try to get decision making and problem solving as close to the people who are experiencing the problem as I possibly can. We're so hierarchical, and it actually acts as an impediment on our clock speed in solving problems because teams of people work together, and they have to report up to their principals who have to find each other somewhere in a coffee shop, and then it drifts down, and it just takes forever. And so how can we empower our faculty and staff in a different way so we can move more quickly and get more engagement in the problem solving?
In 1980, the Pell Grant covered 80% of the costs of public higher education. Today, it's about 28%. So if you want to look for the source of the student debt crisis, it is a 40-year plus policy mistake of allowing the purchasing power of the Pell Grant to deteriorate and transferring the burden to students and families. So I would start with doubling the Pell Grant. That wouldn't take us all the way back, but that'd be a good start.
I was going to say doubling the Pell Grant. And so coming from an HBCU, we've been punching above our weight for so many years. We have educated 80% of the black lawyers, 75% of the black scientists, the 65% of the black judges and attorneys. And I would like to submit that I hope that one day we find it to be not robbery to support our nation's HBCUs and to ensure that these nation's gems are continued to be elevated and to be lifted up. It is a crime, if you will, that some of our institutions, that the facilities don't match what we put out into the world. That although we get the Pell Grant isn't there, that these are students that are oftentimes underestimated, that we continue to do the work. So I would love to see the Pell Grant doubled, that we see more need-based aid, to have more students in a room like this that can continue to contribute to the workforce and contribute to the American society. So that's what I would like to see, if I had my magic wand.
So interestingly, none of you have said anything really structurally about the institutions themselves. Back to your point, Dan, that we have a lot to own up to ourselves in institutions of higher education. Do you feel like the governance structures of our institutions? I'm going to go there. Do you feel like are we ready for change?
No.
I would strengthen, this may sound odd, but I think one of the weakest links in shared governance is not the dialogue between groups, although I do think that can always be improved, but faculty governance is very poor and weak on many campuses. Faculty often elect a loud voice, but not an institutionally minded voice. They often undermine their own governance structure by refusing to accept the recommendations of the committees that they have elected. They don't go to the meetings, they don't participate until there's something that they care about, and then all of a sudden they want to show up and have a voice, even though they haven't educated themselves on the issues. So I do think faculty governance needs to be strengthened as a part of strengthening shared governance, and we don't talk about that enough.
I hope you all feel that we've used our 39 minutes well. I think there's a lot of courage and wisdom on this stage with me. So please join me in thanking our extraordinary team here.